It's about 90 this one.
50?
90?
A little more.
Yeah, you don't, if this is temporary, you don't want that close to this.
It's probably
First
that
building.
is,
It's
do
probably
we
100.
have
It's temporary.
anybody that has anything they want to address the board? Has anybody signed up to speak?
I don't think he heard you.
Chris, do we have anybody signed up to speak? All right.
62 feet.
That is a first.
Amazing.
Okay, quickly, move
That
forward.
is a first.
Move forward quickly.
Right, it's about
When you're
100.
doing everything right.
97 and 62. Total building.
Staff report,
So
district
6,000?
engineer.
Hello.
Hello. There he is.
For the record, Stephen Agapi, Tetra Tech, your district engineer. So good afternoon, everyone. I only have one item on the agenda for you guys today, which is the Gateway Green stormwater piping cleaning project. You guys should have a budgetary cost estimate in front of you. So what we were tasked to do was create a bid package for Gateway Greens. And we're in the process of doing that. We're almost done wrapping that up. We're working with staff to finish a couple of items. So what we did is we took all of the Morris Riley reports for the Gateway Greens area, which is bound by Gateway Boulevard on the east, Pelican Preserve on the west, Commerce Lakes on the south, pretty much all of that area, the western part of Gateway. And we took the Morse Riley reports and we looked for all the pipes that had 20% or greater blockage in the pipes, and we quantified those for the bids. And after doing that, we realized that, hey, there's a lot of pipes in here that need to be cleaned, and the project was over $700,000. So we were asked to split it up to make it a little easier to budget for it, and that's why there's a Gateway Greens South and a Gateway Greens North. So the current estimate is based on cleaning all those pipes, doing a couple minor repairs here and there. I think there's only 3 repairs that need to be done, and all the pipes that are scheduled to be cleaned in this package. Cleaning all the head walls that are associated with these pipes that have been identified to be cleaned, and all the catch basins that are associated with these pipes that were identified to be cleaned. So a couple unknowns still for this project are, what we're going to do with the sediment. Right now, this cost is based on dumping temporarily or permanently within Gateway. So that's one of the things we're working with staff right now, is to find a good location to place the material in the interim, whether it's going to be there permanently or hauled off site.
Is that most what, sand?
Sand and debris that comes out, then you just go back and clean it up after the fact. If you don't, you're going to have these guys hauling this stuff, and the price is going to go through the roof. So this is the way the county does it. So,
Right. So we spoke with the county, Danny did.
Yeah.
And what they do is they clean out their pipes and catch basins, and they pick an area beforehand, and they dump all this material that's wet, and they let it sit there and dry out. And they also have other machinery that can, it's like a sieve or a shaker, or it's pretty much a giant sorter. And it sorts the material and gets all the trash out. And then Lee County DOT uses that material and spreads it along the shoulders of the roadways to build them up.
So will they pick it out once it's clean, or?
We'd have to do that separately, independent, because you don't want to bind the
Right.
contractor in on that.
No,
We
no,
just-
I'm just curious
Yeah.
whether,
We could have somebody else that come in to do it, or we could take and separate, have a labor contract, have somebody come in and separate the materials. You're talking about Coke bottles, plastic bottles,
Right.
bricks, concrete, anything anybody can throw down a storm sewer, basically.
yeah.
To follow up on what Stephen did, because he was only tasked for Gateway Greens, and as a result of our last meeting and people asking, what about me? I went and followed his format using the exact same premises and assumptions. And before you, you have a copy of what Chris gave to you, of all the other communities in Gateway Greens, excluding Silver Lake, which has been done, Stony Brook, which has been done, and Pelican Preserve, which is not applicable. And by community, I've got the pipe links, the construction cost, non-construction cost, total cost, and then people had asked, how bad is it? I've indicated the blockages, like Magnolia Lakes has one blockage. Pinecrest has two. Bristol Park, Cypress Links, 5. You go down to West Links Office Park, 11.
What do you consider a blockage over 20?
When you can't get the camera through it.
Oh.
When you
That's a
can't get it,
blockage
when you
over-
physically, we had Daniels Preserve and Timber Ridge that have, I'm gonna say 5 to 8 manhole to manhole segments, 42-inch pipe and larger, that are 80% blocked. 80%. Those are the main ways their water out of those communities get into the ponds. It's been that way for 4 years. 4 years. We have got to get in and take care of those before. So the question comes, how are we going to fund it? We had a discussion about that last meeting. Well, when you add all of this up, and turn the page, and sorry for the typing I did, totals on the back page, you got $1.5 million plus 700,000. We're looking at 2.3 million to do all this. Unfortunately, it's operation and maintenance, it's not capital. So a lot of the things that we could do are not available. I talked to Russ Wire before the meeting, trying to get an idea out of him, run it past. What I thought about is if we go out and would get a 5-year bond or a 5-year loan to finance this, we'd be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $85,000 a year, I believe, was the principal and interest return on that, or the payback on that. So we've got to, no, it's more than that, about $125,000. 2 million 5. I have to check that. Anyway, the issue is that a long-term or a short-term bond is the only way I see it doing it, because if you took this and tried to scatter this out over a period of 5 years, you're going to have some communities screaming bloody murder that they have to wait 5 years of backups and rainfalls. We can't have another summer like we had this last year. So I think what our biggest issue is, I think we've got the problem solved. We now have to figure out how we're going to pay for it. And that always seems to be the problem.
Mr. Guy?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ed, you are somebody who's done some valuable work here. It's a shame that so many of us were been asleep at the switch so long on this business. But what makes you think that we can snap our finger and find a firm or firms that will immediately start boring, or whatever you want to call the cleaning that's necessary to do it, and have it done, say, by the end of this fiscal year or even next?
Gonna be tough, Bill. The reality is that my thing is we probably at best pick out and do as much as we can this year and have the promise that the rest of it's gonna be all done next year. This has to be done in the dry season, otherwise these costs go through the roof. They go through the roof, because these guys are pumping a lot of water. Right now, the ponds are down about as low as they're going to go. It would be the perfect time to get in and do this work and minimize the amount of water. But you're right. We could put this out for bid right now, like Gateway Greens, both north and south. You're looking at $700,000. The only way you're going to know is to get it out and bid it and see how many bidders you get to do this. Keep in mind, there isn't a lot of contractors that do this kind of work. There's not a lot of contractors.
May I continue?
Yes.
Is this an item that logically, naturally should be considered our ongoing responsibility, i.e., we should have a staff,
Maintenance plan.
a plan of equipment to do this?
If we would have been
instead
doing this over the last 20 years, we wouldn't have the problem we have now. If you take this total price, $2.5 million, divided by 20 years, it's nowhere near the order of magnitude of the problem we would have had. In fact, some of it wouldn't even be an issue at all. But yes, we should have an operation and maintenance plan to do this. You guys at Pelican Preserve have been doing it since day one. Your sewers are all clean.
And
We haven't done it over here.
The pipe lengths that you have here, because this is, your sketch here.
Yeah.
Is that all the pipes, no matter what size they are?
That's all the pipes combined footage from 15-inch all the way up to 72-inch, I believe is the largest one.
Okay, because one of the things that I know happened in Stony Brook and Silver Lakes is that nothing smaller than 30-inch got cleaned.
That's
I
correct.
wouldn't- I'm sorry?
That is correct.
I wasn't aware of that, so, if you want to take and get it down, the only trouble with it is that that makes no sense, because that's where you're gonna have the blockage
pipes.
that's gonna cause the damage on the streets.
I can speak to that. We had tried to bid out Stony Brook and Silver Lakes, like we're doing now, but we kept only getting one bidder for the project. So Gateway decided to do a weekly rate, and pay the contract to do it. And that was done for the large pipes, 30 inches and above. Extreme Divers was the contractor on that. Gateway was supposed to or should have done the same thing for the smaller pipes, and that didn't happen. So Stony Brook and Silver Lakes, the pipes under 30 inches never got cleaned.
Your biggest problem when you do that is obviously the pipes start at the lake and they telescope, but they telescope the wrong direction. The big pipes start and you go up to the little pipes. You do the big stuff first, and you got all the small pipes feeding all the debris right down into what you just cleaned. So it makes no sense whatsoever to do it that way.
Mr. Guy, you had another question?
I did.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show my naivete or ignorance here before long, but what do other large organizations do in this regard? Do they have staff on hand that takes care of this all the time, or do they contract it, and if so, do they only have one contractor like Extreme Divers? What's your experience?
I can speak to what Danny has told me, and he's talked to Lee County, and from what I gather, they have their own staff that does this in-house.
Who does?
Lee County.
Lee County.
And they work with their Department of Transportation to actually reuse the waste or the sediment they pull out of the pipes. So they have a complete life cycle for the material that's recovered.
Can we contract with them?
We could talk to them about that. I mean, if they have the equipment,
Pardon me?
That's not a bad idea.
I don't know.
Yeah,
We
your
could definitely reach
Your
out to
problem is
them.
you're fighting against them doing their own at the same time. That's
I
the
know,
problem.
but
But it's
sometimes
no
you're
harm
surprised.
asking, no harm
Sometimes,
asking.
yeah.
But they have bucket machines, they have vac trucks, which at least 8 years ago, I asked how in the heck we do business. I didn't say heck, but how did we do business here all this time without a vac truck? I mean, that is an essential business, part of a utility business.
So,
Mr. Banks,
can
go ahead.
can someone just explain to me what the process is for cleaning these out? I have no idea how you go and clean these pipes.
You mean how the contractor would do it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, is there certain equipment? Do you literally? I mean, what?
Well, no, go ahead. Explain what Brad's firm, how they've done it.
All right, so on larger pipes, Brad Rogers with Extreme Divers actually put a man in a
Put a man
suit
in.
with, air hoses, and they put him in there with a vacuum, and they're, physically going around and sucking it up like with a vacuum.
Mhm.
On the smaller pipes, they will plug one end, and they'll plug an adjacent pipe, and they'll drain the water out of it, and they'll use the vac trucks that Ed's talking about. It's pretty much just a giant vacuum on a truck, and it has water nozzle on the front with a long hose.
They jet it
And
back.
they fill it up with water from either fire hydrant, that's most typical, and they run this nozzle down to the one end of the pipe, and then they pull it back, and it jets that material down to the other end, and they suck it up with the water and the sediment, and it fills up that big truck, and they have to go dump it.
Yeah.
So that's how typically they do it.
So there's equipment costs, there's expertise, and then you're talking about putting a diver in a pipe. There's probably some
Risk.
liability and risk
Big
that
time.
might be associated. So
Big time.
but
There are
I-
certain guidelines for that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think all that has
They're
to be
good
weighed
at
out.
what they do.
Yeah.
Our thing is that we've really struggled in the last 2 or 3 weeks with this cost estimating of coming up with this, talking to people, and this is our best guess. The real deal, though, is to get it out for bid and find out how accurate these numbers are. I would certainly hope that this is on the high side. It would scare the daylights out of me if this is on less than the high side. because that would be frightening cost.
Thank you, Mr. Tinkle, for doing this. My question is, again, it's about money. So we really need to put what we want to spend our money on and what the priorities are. We can't just spend it every which way. We have to make some kind of priority list of where the money should be spent. And that's my concern.
And, go ahead, I was gonna put in, I know that one of the things that, I just wanna say this and then I'll give you the floor. One of the things that we were considering doing was the stormwater utility assessment. That was gonna be part of our assessment
source.
method,
Yeah.
assessment methodology.
And Russ said that is exactly what you would want to do on this, is whether it's a principal and interest payment, short-term to take care of this, and/or if it's a long-term to address Bill's issue of what we need to be doing going forward. Either or, it goes in against that stormwater utility or stormwater allocation for determining who pays for it.
I mean, I would love to see, I know there's probably things that need to be addressed immediately, but I'd like to see, are there certain components that we should be building in-house capability to do some of this stuff? I mean, again, when you're talking about putting a diver in I mean, that's, you know, for some of those larger pipes may not be in our best
I'm
interest.
a diver and I wouldn't do it.
You know, but I think to the point too, that it's maybe harder to get bids on some of the smaller pipes, which might be more advantageous for us to build out capability, maybe in partnering with the county to get people, you know, certified through, you know, through that program or shadow for a certain amount of time, but, you know, I don't know. But I think we need to invest.
Well, I can
Mr.
catch.
Shoemaker had wanted to make
I was just gonna make one
comment.
comment, we discussed this too, because most utilities do have a back truck, and our utility operation could make use of it. You go to buy a back truck, better have $250,000 in your pocket.
$250,000. And then when you start talking about that other equipment, you better throw in another $250,000.
CDL licenses, and they're mechanic friendly. But however, we can get some bids on that, and tell you what the staffing would cost, so when you get these bids back, we could offer it as an alternative. And it would be the same thing seasonally, when it's dry, your staff's cleaning, you know, on a regular basis maintenance. When it's
When would
wet,
we-
you can use it on the utility side and clean pump stations and other lines.
I mean, how often should this be done? I mean, if we do it once, with
Every
the way
year.
things go.
Every year and cycle it.
Okay.
Good rule of thumb would be about 20% a year, so that at the end of 100 or 5 years, you've done the whole thing, and then you start all
So
over
basically,
again.
if we do it now, let's say we got all of them in 1 year, we would look probably in 5 years, maybe 7 years if we stretch it, to do it all over again. And then, so we're gonna spend, let's say, maybe not upwards of 2 million, but let's say probably half that, maybe it's a million every 5 to 7 years, hypothetically.
Well, your cost, it just
There's
depends
not a
on,
maintenance
it
routine.
really depends upon who's going to do it. I agree with Chris. First of all, if you're going to get in there, that vac truck to me is essential. Get the vac truck, and then the question is just to what extent do you go out and purchase the other things to get into the business of doing this? I can tell you it's very expensive. Most people sub this out unless they've got a huge system like Lee County would have. But it wouldn't hurt to go check with them on maybe bidding out with them the small stuff and then going out on the large stuff for bid.
Do we rent
But,
there?
but doing this stuff separately is a waste of time, because you go out and clean a 36-inch pipe, it's got 15, 18, and 24 feeding it. All you do is all that material just goes right straight down and fills the pipe up that you just cleaned. It's not the way you do it.
And, we're talking about the phasing, so, really, and I think when we originally started this project 4 or 5 years ago, that was what we were planning on doing, about 20% of the community a year. And so we should have already gotten through the community one time, but for various and sundry reasons, we are where we are.
Well, going out and bidding the Gateway Greens, which is what they've got the authorization on, the one thing that we will find real quick is what's the circumstances in the field for this, and what are we looking at pricing? Again, that'll tell us what we're in the range. I'd be happy as can be, they come in and they cut this Gateway Greens by 30%, because that's a lot of money.
And there
But we
isn't-
don't know that for sure, and we need to find out. And the only way we're gonna find out is to get this thing out and bid it.
And there isn't any money in here for disposal. I mean, even if they dump it somewhere, and they don't.
No,
pay
this
them.
includes dumping it on a site that we have.
Right, in
Yeah.
Gateway.
Yeah, in
Okay.
Gateway.
We put in a 20% contingency that it might tackle all the hauling costs. We don't know where we would haul it, if it's decided to remove off site.
The two logical places right now is the storage facility, depending upon, and I did verify that they've got the permit working on the storage facility. The other one is we simply go to Dave Caldwell and right across the street here, see if we can gain access to an acre, 2 acres of that property to dump the material on, where it's easily accessible to these contractors. Go out there, open that gate up, they come in with their vac trucks, go over, dump it, and
You
be
mean
right
the
off that road.
The linear park?
The linear park,
Yeah,
yes.
Especially down at the end towards.
Good luck with that.
Stony Brook.
Well,
'Cause there's some fill would be actually be.
Or, that, great idea,
nice.
come in off of the little access road down at the end at Stony Brook and go into, that area is much more barren, and do it in
fill
there.
would actually be beneficial over
And
there.
fill, we might be able to use the fill ourselves.
Yeah.
And can I add one thing? If we're gonna get involved and bid it, please bid it, so whoever's doing this work takes care of the trash when it's over. Not, they go dump it, and then 6 months later, hey, when are you guys gonna take care of this dirt?
That wasn't part of the bid.
Your problem with that, Chris, your problem with that is it's an undefined scope of work at this point in time. We can't tell them what the magnitude of the work is they're gonna be doing. We don't know what's in those sewers. I agree with you, we need to take whatever we have as an estimate, we need to have a subsequent vendor come in and do the cleanup. But if you put in, just dealing with contractors, nothing scares them more than an undefined scope of work, and having them put in a price for hauling off. Well, what am I hauling off? I don't know, that's your risk. You know what happens then? They just jack the price. So I agree it needs to be done, but I think you're gonna have to wait until the stuff is down and drained to have another vendor come in and haul it off. Because the ones that I'm talking about doing this, that do this kind of work, they're not in that business for the, what we call the cleanup. They're in there to get that material out of the pipe, and that's what you're paying them for their expertise.
Can you break this? So there's north and south. One's 4 and some change, the other one's 2 and some change. Are you looking at bidding a portion of this out?
I'd bid all of Gateway Greens right now, find out what we got. There's nothing says you have to issue a, what do you call it? You can bid it in 2 divisions. You authorize one division if the prices come in high. You authorize both if they come in low.
Or you can do it in 4 or 5 divisions.
Granted,
Yeah, we need a sample, we need a
Our-
sample size. We just need to
We
determine
just don't have-
What's that sample amount that we're willing to, to fund? If it's,
Well,
if it's the,
that's the bigger
south
question
with
is-
291, or if we split that in half and we're gonna split this in 4 or 6 parts, I don't know.
There's your bigger question. Where's the money coming to pay for it? That's the bigger question. The only way I see it doing it, and talking to Russ, he runs CDDs, several CDDs on his own. And he says, well, first of all, you should have gotten this position. I said, well, don't tell me anything I don't already know. You need to have ongoing maintenance. But he says, at this point, you've got to somehow get that cost spread out over time, and the only way you can do it is a short-term loan.
Well, if we don't go there, Tyler, or Stephen, what do we have within available budget that could potentially fund a portion of this?
And looking at your budget, and kind of estimating right now, you could certainly fund this Greenway South. You could do a budget transfer from your general fund for the $124,000 that's already budgeted. And then from there, I estimate you probably can pull from some different lines, maybe another $75,000. So that would be a total budget transfer of about $200K. And I'm saying transfer it into your capital project fund. And then the capital project fund could fund the difference, maybe an additional $100,000. So that could get you through this budget year and certainly this Gateway Green South.
Call
And is it-
that phase one?
Well, let me ask you
But
this.
then how would you do phase,
Well,
would
we'll
you
get-
roll that over?
We'll figure that out later, but the question is, my question for like south, because that's a small amount, can we even split that one in half? What's the benefit?
I've got people calling me, in fact, you've got a letter on your desk from people that are in Fairway North or in Gateway North. They want to know when you're going to do it.
Well, I mean,
Because they got
and
flooded.
there's probably a whole long line of people that want it done. That's not the question. I mean, from an execution perspective, whether it's engineering answers this or Ed, just because you're close to it, is there a way to take south and even break that in half?
I would be totally
we,
opposed
we
to that.
can do it. I mean, it's definitely possible to break it up. What the benefit is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
The issue is we can't stall this. This is dangerous. We had rains we learned last year with a combination of a 25, 30-year storm event in August followed by Irma. We can't have this happen again.
Well, the reason for moving forward is twofold. One, it gets the ball rolling, so we start addressing this. But two, I think we need to have a sample size and a pilot so we understand level of effort, cost, the bidding process. You know, I think that's, you know, if we can go there, then we at least have some lessons learned. We have some, you know, would serve us in the rest bidding process, because we should be value engineering throughout the whole process. We should, you know, have some lessons learned.
We've got all
and we
that.
can afford that. We can.
We've got all that down pat, Doug. The only thing I'm worried about is what's the price? What's the price? I would be willing to take, if you want to call Gateway Green South as phase one, get the bids on that and immediately get going. But the bottom line is, how are we going to pay for the other $2 million?
That's
We
part of our
have to
planning
have an
process.
answer to that question, because people are not going to sit back and wait for us for 5 years. I can tell you that right now. They are very upset,
Question.
because we had water close to going in houses.
Stephen, as I look at our capital improvement plan for fiscal 18, I noticed that there is, where is it, anyway, $165,000 for an office building expansion in the general fund, and then another $385,000 in the enterprise fund.
Correct. Yeah, that's what was originally, when we did the budget, was gonna be the Girl Scout building, the cost for that and construction parts of it.
Is the amount we have budgeted in the enterprise fund to any degree applicable to the subject that we're discussing?
No, not to be used for stormwater.
Okay, just, okay.
I mean, again, if you're talking about a shared facility, obviously that's why you're able to kind of split it between the two. But if you're strictly talking stormwater, you're getting back to what Mr. Tinkle has already talked about, what he's already discussed with Russ, establishing that assessment. You know, whether it's to fund, you know, debt service or to fund ongoing maintenance, or, you know, that's basically your route that you're gonna have to take.
Steve, would we be able to take, just hypothetically, let's say that building is 200,000 that we're talking about that's interim. And Margaret had mentioned earlier, we had around 700, and that was the number I had in my mind, 700,000 budgeted. Well, if we're going to take and look at a long-term debt on the long-term building, which could be 3 years out, then that 700,000, why couldn't 500 of it be transferred over to stormwater cleaning?
I'm not sure about the 500, but you can certainly, there is some available to transfer over.
Well, let's go backwards. Was her statement that 700 available, was that incorrect?
I'm not sure there's 700, no. I do not believe there's 700.
Because I kind of agree with her. I thought that we had 700,000 available for the Girl Scout, but nonetheless,
But that
it
was
is.
between the two funds.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes, between the two funds, again, we're talking different projects.
okay. And I assume you're talking utility funds versus general funds.
General funds, right.
And general funds is where this falls. So only the general fund component,
Yes.
okay. What is that number, less 200,000?
Less 200,000.
In other words, if we keep 200 in to do what we want to do for this interim building.
Right. My estimation, just the capital project, the fund itself is about $500,000 left. Assuming staff completes all the other projects that are in this budget, which, you know, I'm not sure how much of it we get done this year, but there is about $300,000 planned in the budget that's remaining.
I mean,
So,
Okay, so put it another way, is there $291,368 approximately that could be transferred to handle Gateway Greens
Yeah,
South.
you already said that.
Yes, oh, yeah.
That's-
So there
that's-
was 200,
good.
and then there was an
Okay.
additional 100. So we could fund that with our existing budget by reallocation.
But don't ask for anything more.
Tell that to Timber Ridge and Daniels Preserve residents.
And I would be willing to entertain that as a pilot
Starting.
starting point. And then everything else, as we get into our planning process, we can look at how we're gonna future fund that. If we're looking at the assessment, which to me, I think that's where what makes viable sense is through the new assessment,
I'd
looking at
also,
potentially funding this.
I also like Mr. Guy's idea of contacting the county, and they may even have vendors that we might be able to piggyback on. If they have outside vendors come in and do some of their work, they may not do all of it. It'd be interesting to find out if there could be any cost savings by piggybacking onto the county.
We could do that while you're out advertising for bids.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
definitely.
And-
Mrs.
oh,
Flaherty?
When we're finished with this topic, I have some questions for the engineer.
Okay, we're not.
Well, we've already got an authorization to do the work that delineates out Gateway Greens. You divided it into two, north and south. So,
Wait a minute, we haven't decided on that. I think we ought to divide it into 5 or 6 projects, 'cause until we know exactly what we're talking about.
Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in on top of that. I don't have any problem bidding out Gateway Green South to see what we come back with. We don't have to accept it, we don't have to do the project.
That's right, but
need
we
to
wanna get
know-
going.
But we wanna know how much it's gonna cost, because this is.
We
this
can
is-
divvy- we can
That's
divvy it up.
vitally important, but
We-
we wanna get going.
we can divvy it up after we take, well, that's where I was heading,
No,
Bill.
You can't divvy it up.
Yeah, what I was, yeah,
can.
yeah, you can, real easy to do. We can issue partial notice to proceed, we can do all kinds of things with it, as long as we specify it. But I think the issue is right now, is we don't have,
Is the attorney awake over there?
Yes, sir.
we don't have a motion on the floor to authorize them to go to bid, I believe. That's the next step.
Yeah, and part of the bid documents and bid specifications, you can say give alternate bids.
Yes.
Bid it as a whole, bid it as 5 phases.
That'd be the way
And
to do
say
it.
that notices to proceed may only be issued for 1, 2, 3, or all. I mean, that's, that could all be articulated in the bid documents, so everybody's well aware.
Bill, to answer your question, in Gateway Green South, there's at least 6 sub-associations that have their own lakes that you could easily pull this thing apart. In fact, that's how we originally set it up and gave it to Tetra Tech. I had each community and each pipe in that community that went to a lake and stayed in that community, that defined an area, that he added them all up, and that's
How this-
called Gateway Greens Drive. Is everything north was on the north side, everything south was on the south side. So it'd be easy to do that, but our next step is to go fast to get a advertisement for bid out for, if the pleasure is Gateway Greens South, and see what the numbers are so that we have a feel of where we're going. Concurrent with that, I think we totally go to the county. My only deal is, my talking with the county is, they're busier than the dickens doing their own right now. But we can ask them. We can ask 'em.
So do we need
This
to?
would be money-making for them. They would be charging us for this.
Question
If
is,
they're
are they
doing
gonna
it on
charge,
their own,
are they,
don't make money.
are they gonna charge more than the bidder would charge? That's the question. But anyway, we need numbers.
Yes.
We need numbers.
So you're saying that Gateway Green South could be bid as a total, or it can be bid as how many?
He could do 5 or 6 on that, because you can take each one of those areas, like Hampton Greens, Fairway Isles North, Fairway Isles South, split those up into 5 items, very easy,
Right.
and just have a separate price for each one of them.
It almost.
Sure.
It's easy to do.
Okay.
So my motion would be to authorize Tetra Tech to go on ahead, start the process of preparing the bid documents and the advertisement for bid, and let's get it on the street.
Okay, and do it as a unit price and
Unit price per area.
and then break it into also 5 areas.
Let them
So
come
we've
up with
got a-
5 areas or whatever
However
number
they're
you
gonna
want.
split it.
Yeah,
And that gives us flexibility.
that gives us flexibility. And concurrently, we speak with the county.
Concurrently speak with the county.
Are you looking for a second?
Yes,
I'll second that motion.
okay, any further
Yeah,
discussion?
and And as, so the guidance going back is as you determine your split, how you're
Are you
gonna
okay?
cut south up,
Okay.
let's use that methodology, something that is repeatable, as we move
Well,
forward.
you have
If
to
it's-
start.
If it's square footage or if it's.
It's not that simple. You've got a pipe that starts at a lake, and you take that pipe all the way to the end. So that's about the only way to do it. Thank God, in Gateway Greens, in most of the communities, you have a single pipe that serves an area, or multiple pipes that serve a community, like Daniels Preserve. Daniels Preserve have 8 pipes going into the lake. You either can take Daniels Preserve as one whole project, or you take
can
the
split it
south
up.
half and split it up.
Well,
But whatever
whatever
you
that
do,
is.
whatever you do, when you start at a pipe at the head wall, you take it all the way to clean it.
Whatever,
to the end.
however you split it, let's just make sure that we can, you know,
Yeah,
Okay.
that we use it, that it's repeatable.
We can do
Okay.
that easy.
Don't let them throw all of that debris into the lake either.
Okay. I'll stop them.
Well, some of them, Bill, now, they will offer, I guarantee you, you're gonna get an alternate bid from one contractor who's got the ability to de-water it there on the site. He'll drop the water right back into the lake, and he'll take the solids and carry it off.
I'm not the solid.
Yeah,
That's kind of what they did in some areas in Stony Brook.
Strange
They
what they've
put
done
it
in-
through the bladder.
Yeah.
They had one of those bladders.
Makes
and
a lot
the
more
water
sense.
drained out,
Yes.
and they took the bladder and dumped it.
last thing you want to be doing is, one of these trucks that typically with a vac truck, Chris, 2,500 gallon, that's the El Cheapo, 2,500 gallon, the last thing you want to do is be running a 2,500 gallon truck up and back down the road. I mean, you're losing your rear end on haul distance of carrying that stuff because you're carrying water. If you can get that water back into the sewer on site and all you're carrying is a mixture of the water and the debris, you're way ahead of the game.
So we have a motion on the table. If I have no more further discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And were we clear enough
Yes.
what we're asking? I know sometimes
Clear
we
as
can be a little bit all over the place.
Bid package for the south, split up into different areas by however we can do it the best, so. Sounds good to
Yep.
us.
Thank you. And is staff gonna contact the county, or are you gonna ask Tetra Tech to do it?
Yeah, the reason I like to have staff talk to them is because Chris, when he talks to them, can talk to them about that vendor or vendors that can do that ultimate cleanup, because I really think that we also need to be talking to David at WCI Lennar about utilizing that north end of the FPL easement. Easy access, easy way to get out there and turn around and dump it and go right back onto the road. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, and before we spring you,
Sure.
Mrs. Flaherty had another engineering question.
Okay.
Actually, a different topic.
Right. We're supposed to get a tax authorization update report at the second meeting of the month. And
Okay.
that is not included.
Is that
Okay.
today?
All right, and I just was wondering where that was. Also, I wanted an update for the permit for the storage facility, where it's at, and because you got the check 6 weeks ago and it's
Right.
just sitting there in limbo.
Well, Tyler dropped it off this week, so the county has it. And for the task updates, I don't know. I don't prepare those. Danny probably has that. I'm sorry I don't have it.
Which update?
I mean, I can
Task
probably update you
authorization.
on some of the tasks.
No, I just like to read them, so I
Okay.
have them. And how about you said the county has the permit, how about South Water Management? So-
Tyler should have dropped both of them off.
So those were dropped off this past
Yeah,
week?
this week, yes.
Okay. All right. Do we know the timeline of when we will hear from them?
I would suspect we would get comments within 30 days, probably.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right, okay.
Is that it?
That's it. I just
Okay.
needed an update.
Margaret, I have-
All right, I'll have Danny send the task authorization updates
Yep.
to everyone. Is that okay?
And, well, what I'd like to say is, when Chris and I were working on this particular agenda, because it has a workshop in it, we discussed the idea of having the staff reports on the alternate. So
Mhm.
the first meeting of
Yeah.
the month is when the staff reports would come in, and then the second meeting of the month would be for the workshop, and it would not include the staff reports. So that it kind of shortens the agenda, and so the task authorization update would be fine for the next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, if
Because
that's the
that's
case.
when it'll be on the
Honestly, if
agenda.
that's the case, then on the second meeting, I don't think we need engineering here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If there's something that requires action, it can be an action item. It wouldn't be in staff reports. It would be an agenda item under action
Yep.
items.
Yeah, I have three things for Stephen. The pond operational transfers, did we get that over to South Florida, or were you involved in that, or is that a Chris issue? Did we get those 5, 6, 7?
They're not done yet, I've got 4 of them submitted.
We got 4 submitted. Do we have a transmittal letter that went to South Florida?
Keep a copy of it.
Okay.
Just tracking it internally too, adding it to our list.
Next one is West Haven. They, bite my tongue, submitted the plans to the state again, to South Florida Water Management District, and basically we find out about it after the fact. So we have the plans, I believe, here. Are you looking at those plans to make sure before
Yes.
South Florida certifies them? Haven't never heard from us?
Right. We started our review process this week.
Okay, we need to get that comment letter back to Chris and to them ASAP.
Okay.
And I imagine that goes for you too.
Yeah, and, well, I have not seen the submittal. And I would suggest that any comments that are made to the district management or to the district from the engineers or attorneys also go to South Florida at the same time, just so they know.
Just so they know.
Because that way they can't feign lack of knowledge.
Well, the other one, we're dealing with a new engineering firm on this development, and it sounds like they don't know Gateway. Are we going to be scheduling a pre-app meeting with them before they go any further to make sure, or will we hand deliver the comments to them at a pre-app meeting, or how are we going to do that to get them up to speed and are knowledgeable of the requirements of our permanent criteria manual?
There's supposed to be a pre-app meeting, so we'll start working on comments
Where,
and then.
where are we at on a pre-app meeting with their engineer?
We haven't had a meeting with them. We talked to them about points of connection, and I brought this issue up with them submitting the permit app to South Florida, and Rhonda apologized because we had sent them our permit criteria manual and all
Did she
the.
apologize that she got caught, or what?
Well, she just apologized and talked to them about it and said it wouldn't happen again. And like I said, that's the first time that firm has worked in Gateway, with us. but-
What the gal call that got kicked out of the president's office, was that a white lie? Is that what that was, a white lie? I would think that now that we have the plans, it would be appropriate to have that pre-app meeting as soon as you get your review,
Sure.
to make sure that they understand what the way our standard operating procedure is. It sounds like they are claiming that they're a rookie and didn't know anything about Gateway. The last one was was one more, Hampton Park. I had mentioned at the last meeting, I think that we have, we got 2 issues. Issue 1 is we received a 15-page comment response letter back from them, and Tetra Tech is working on that.
From whom did you get the response letter, please?
We got it, they delivered it Friday at
From-
5
from
after.
whom?
Tetra Tech.
Baracco,
Rocco.
Baracco,
Right.
Hampton Parks engineer,
On behalf of the developer.
on behalf of the developer. They delivered it Friday at 5:05, as I understand it. We
Very
weren't
nice.
here.
Very nice.
And they used that as an excuse of not meeting the 5 o'clock deadline, but it was here Monday. There's a package there for Tetra Tech to take to get started on it, but I gave them an advance copy of the 15-page letter that I picked up from Chris. It's interesting reading, immensely interesting reading. I had a conversation with Mr. Brian Rose at South Florida Water Management District, and in essence, the conversation was, why are you nitpicking them? Why are you nitpicking them? I said, real simple. If it's not in accordance with the plans and specs, we sign off on it on operational permit, and one property owner over there calls you and complains that it's in non-compliance and you come out, what are you gonna do? I said, you're gonna issue a non-compliance letter right to us. So it's not nitpicking. It's not personal, it's business. We've gotta make sure that they address this issue. But things that they're doing, for example, the 15-inch pipes, the 8-inch pipes that are in the backyards, the 15s are called out as in an easement dedicated to GSCDD. They have notified in this letter, they're turning it over to the master HOA. Things like that is, I mean, I'm afraid we're on a collision course, but I think I want to first have Tetra Tech's comments to their responses as quick as possible so that we can sit down and have a meeting. They want to have this whole thing ready for us, Margaret, you, sign on the dotted line before May 1st of we taking over all of Hampton Park.
Well, that-
And
we
my deal
shall
is,
see.
we shall see. But that's the other one. The other part of that is that Hampton Park, the one thing that we can be doing and preparing for is going to South Florida Water Management District and getting approval to put in an adjustable weir on control pond number 3. And I think that needs to be a work order authorizing you guys to, I suppose the first thing to be is have a meeting with South Florida Water Management District to find out what all they're going to require for us to
Right.
do it. Building it is simple as can be, but we need to get that going before the rainy season.
Then we should probably have staff work with Tetra Tech to bring that forward to, as an agenda item.
That's a work order that we need, or a task authorization that we need to approve and get going. Because you want to do that construction right now. The water level's way below the weir. It's so easy to go in there and do it right now. The only thing you have to worry about is water moccasins.
Okay.
Righty.
That's everything I have for
Is that-
Stephen.
Anybody else have a question for our
All right, so
engineer?
Ed, you said that submittal over there was for me?
I think, Chris, is that a packet, the complete packet of all the attachments and everything for
Morocco
them to take?
plans?
Morocco plans?
Is that your copy or is that an extra
I think they
copy?
just sent one over. That was what they sent over, and,
There's another example. They put on that letter, on the transmittal letter, a CC went to you all,
Yeah, we never got anything.
and you never got anything.
I would have noticed that. Yeah.
well, it's not all that, it's just the top set.
Oh, okay. Alrighty then, well, thank you.
But
Thank
we
you.
definitely need him to have something to take with him, because they gotta get started on this stuff, but you know what's in the packet.
Yeah, you can just pull that top set of plans off, it says first address, it's just.
I think it's all those wrapped down and everything on top of it. That's what it looks like.
I will, while they're working on that, I'll move on to district council.
Yes, ma'am. A couple things. I think David Lapidus is on hold, and I'll wait for Chris because there's some items. But before we get to that, just briefly, Chris sent me a copy of a lawsuit that the district was served with this past week. And so I sent it to Chris, and he should send it to the insurance carrier. It's from 2015, I believe. And the lawsuit, in the body of the lawsuit, says that this woman was operating a scooter on Gateway Boulevard, hit a pothole. The notice of claim that went to Lee County, the city of Fort Myers, and the state, but not to the district, which is required, if you're gonna, before you file a lawsuit, you're supposed to send a notice of claim to the governmental body, says she was walking on a sidewalk and tripped and fell.
Say
So,
what, say what?
She was walking
on the sidewalk and tripped and fell. So the lawsuit document, it said, the complaint says, riding a scooter hit a pothole, and injuries. The notice of claim says, walking on a sidewalk, tripped and fell, injuries. So,
Those are two different things.
I understand, that's why we have the insurance carrier, and that Chris has sent it to, we have a clock ticking on it to 20 days to respond. So I assume you've sent it to the insurance carrier, so they can retain defense counsel as per the usual process.
Where did this occur?
It doesn't say, exactly.
Because we need to find out if it's a root, because we have, if it's a root that caused it to hump up, that's a liability we have with the county.
It doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
Don't think,
They sued the city of Fort Myers first, saying it was in the city. The city says, we don't own Gateway Boulevard. They then named the county says, we did not own that segment, and now it's us, but we don't know where it happened, and we're not sure if she was riding a scooter, hit a pothole, got up, walked to the sidewalk, and tripped and fell. I don't know. But I just want to report you on that.
It's
And
just
when
awareness
did,
item that
and
you're
when,
Yes.
which
when did this,
required in
when did this
discussion.
happen?
April 2015.
Oh, you gotta be kidding.
No, and again, there's no allegation the district was ever notified of a claim. All the claim notices went to the city and the county. So
Okay, thank
anyways, the
you.
insurance carrier will have it. They take care of those kind of things.
right.
We pay this and I'm gonna get in line.
Do you have a scooter?
No, I'm just gonna
The
trip.
next item is We have, David, are you on the phone? David he was on
No,
hold.
I hadn't called him.
And Madam Chairman, I would suggest as you call him, he was on hold. He said he was calling in.
All right?
I asked him- David
David
Lapidus,
Lapidus.
bond counsel.
Oh, yes.
And I asked him to watch, because we have the new YouTube, I guess I've not seen it yet, it's supposed to be much better.
Welcome to Ready Access by CenturyLink. Please enter your access code followed by the pound sign. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairperson, press the star key now. Please enter your chairperson passcode, then press pound. To start your conference, press 1. To start your conference now, press star. You will now be placed into conference. For a menu of conference commands, press star at any time.
David? David? Okay, Madam Chairman, can the volume be increased?
Yep,
or-
I'm turning it up now. Is that better?
David, yes.
Hello?
Can you hear us, David?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Madam Chairman, and if I may, I would suggest that while we have David also, that we have item 5B be considered as part of this discussion. I think that'd be appropriate,
Okay.
because it all involves SRF.
Yeah.
We have a couple, either Stephen, Bloom, and Chris or I will chime in as appropriate. In front of you, you have, and this is an action item, request for consideration and ratification of a trust agreement between the district and Regions Bank. That's been going back and forth with Regions Bank for the last few weeks. And I believe we have all of the comments in from Regions Bank. Their attorney, as I understand from David, in an email this afternoon, just wanted to read it one more time. This is necessary under the validation proceeding and under the statutory scheme for the funds from the SRF loan to be dispersed from DEP to the trustee. The trustee will then disperse to the district. This is for all of the lake projects. Primarily, we're in the process now of getting the reimbursement for the first,
This is the 3.9 million
Correct.
recovery for the first 5 projects.
but it's also set up to be
Ongoing.
and usable for all other activities, construction activities on a lake project in the future. And so what we'd ask is that the board approve the chairman's signing the document in substantially final form. If there are any more little nits or edits that the bank's attorney suggests, and if they're not substantial, then that would be appropriate.
Do we, as a board, have to approve a motion to approve the trust agreement? Or
Yes.
is that the first action?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the trust agreement between the CDD and Regions
In
Bank,
substantially final form is in front of you.
based on the form that is in front of us.
Thank you, substantially. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mrs. Bird, you have a question?
I do have a question. This trust agreement is not on the agenda?
No, and we can open up to the floor for any comments anybody may have. It's just, it's a product of going back and forth with Regions Bank and their counsel. It was not available in time, but it is a time-sensitive matter. So, Madam Chair, if you wish to open up to, before the board takes a vote, anybody in the audience want to comment on the trust agreement?
I will open it up for any comments from the audience. Seeing none, I'll close the comments.
Thank you. Is there any questions of Mr. Lapidus or myself or Chris or Stephen as to the trust agreement?
A comment, a kibitz. Why now? I would have thought that this would have been before us months ago. Did we just find out that we had to do this?
No, David, I'm trying to recall, David, the first time you issued a draft of it was, what, a month or two ago, or?
I went back, looking at my email traffic back and forth, and it was in substantially final form back in February, and it was circulated to you and staff. And then we had some trouble getting some conference calls set up, and, I mean, it really hasn't changed since, in any great degree since the board last saw it. Principal change is the setting it up so that we could drop in subsequent SRF loans as they come through into this document without having to redo it and bring it back to the board over and over and over again.
And I think part of it was also was nudging regions along to get the comments back. I think Stephen was trying to nudge them along.
Yeah.
David, what comes first, the trust agreement or the fiscal sustainability plan?
They both
Separate.
run together. If we don't have the fiscal sustainability plan approved, we don't have the loan from the state, and if we don't have the loan from the state, we don't need the trust.
Okay, so that's what I thought.
They all run together.
That's the way I remember working them up north. So it seems to me that the proper deal would be to approve the fiscal sustainability plan and resolution first, and then the trust agreement.
No, I think it's fine to do the trust agreement first, because it has to be out there anyways.
But we
at
have to
some
do
point in
both
time.
of them.
Yes.
Okay,
That's what we're gonna do the other one next.
okay.
May I ask a question,
Certainly.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, you may.
If you look on page 4, after you looked at the title page where it says Regions Bank is the trustee, the first page, the first line says Center State Bank is the interim lender.
Yes, sir, that was the loan that was taken out last year with a maturity date of March 21st, that will be taken out by the reimbursement from FDEP. So they're the interim lender.
That's why our time is clicking.
And so that if you go on down to the 4th paragraph on that page, we're talking about the $4.4 million promissory note. That was the note that was originally taken out for the contract for the lakes that have already been finished.
Yes, sir.
Interim line of credit.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Any other questions?
Call.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. The next item is something, I guess, Chris can explain, the fiscal sustainability plan, or Stephen. That's, the resolution form is in good form, and the need for the fiscal sustainability plan is something Chris can explain.
Sure, basically, anytime you get any of that federal money and then it goes through the state, they want a sustainability plan, how you're gonna maintain that asset that they loan you the money to construct. It's a little easier when you look at something like a lift station, they wanna know when you're gonna grease the pumps, when you're gonna change the floats, how you're gonna maintain it. With this, it's a little different, but it's basically telling them how we are going to maintain that asset.
Good thing they didn't ask the question how we maintained it to get it in the condition it's in.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
we
what
did.
they're
No,
trying
because
to
we
do.
didn't.
They're trying to make sure, I think that's what Chris saying, yeah.
And,
Not
one thing that's gonna come out of this too is in the next month, I'll have a professional go out there and actually do a yearly inspection of that, mark up on the as-bills where there's any problems, estimate how much it'll take to fix those problems if we have anything glaring that's not warranty work, and then use that to establish a maintenance budget on those ponds. We may need to go back and fish some, some holes from the fish or burrowing areas, or do some treatments.
Great.
But we need to have a maintenance plan so we don't end up like we are with the storm sewers.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the fiscal sustainability plan and authorize Margaret to sign the resolution.
I'll second.
Resolution number 2018-03. I just add that in there. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right, I'll call that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And as part of this discussion, while we still have David on the phone, as I understand it from the SRF process, well, what we'll try to do is get the chairman's signature on the trust agreement today, get it to Regions Bank so we can have it in place. We'd like to have it in place tomorrow. And then I think, Chris, you will transmit tomorrow this adopted fiscal sustainability plan and the resolution to FDEP. And that's the last piece they need for their disbursement.
Correct, and then we sent them a draft disbursement request for them to review. Everything looked good. We submitted the receipts, so we'll just do it formally.
And there's a timing issue sometimes when paper and electronic documents fly around. The maturity date on the interim loan to Center State is the 21st, next Wednesday. And we have a payoff figure, and I can't recall that number, David or Stephen, what's that number?
Yeah, it's basically a little bit over $3.9 million.
And,
That sounds about right. I've got the payoff letter. I can locate it well.
39840 or something.
it's
like that.
okay for that. And one of the issues is the timing, because there was discussion about the timing of making that payment, so there's not an issue of the district being considered not fully complying with the terms of the loan with Center State. And so from my understanding from the emails from Chris and your communications, even if we had everything to the state tomorrow, there's not an indication that the monies would be received in time to make that payment on the 21st. Is that correct?
Correct.
What about a time extension?
Well, we look at an extension, and if Steve wants to add on it, but it doesn't look like it'll be a problem, we get a 30-day extension from Center State.
Yeah, what I would suggest then is that the board authorize the chair to sign appropriate documents to modify the loan for a 30-day extension of the Center State loan. And Stephen, you've had communications with Center State about that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you have the two options. In talking with Center State, they're more than willing to go 30 days, no additional fees. They would waive the fees, late fees, but obviously would still incur interest.
But no enhanced interest, the same interest rate?
That's, right now, I don't have anything in writing.
Okay.
And then the second option would be to use district cash reserves to, pay off the loan by the 21st. And then obviously when the money comes in, it would get put back into those accounts, so.
Yeah, and I guess from the standpoint of the interest rate on that is 2.440. And so I guess,
30 days is about $8,000.
That's what I was gonna do.
yeah, and I think from this perspective, I think it's appropriate, and once again, it's a board policy decision to authorize, finalizing that modification extension for 30 days.
I'd make the motion to authorize Margaret to negotiate it on the former, and if the deal goes anything more than what you believe you verbally have from them, then we talk about utilizing our own district funds to cover in the event that falls through.
It's basically a loan
So
against
you
another
make the
account.
call.
It'd be, so in other words, it'd be no enhanced interest, a 2.44 interest rate, no penalties, no fees. Are they gonna have any attorney's fees for preparation of a
Well,
modification?
that's just it. If you're gonna do something from an extension standpoint, yes.
And their attorney's been incredibly reasonable, though, so
That's part of life. That's
yeah,
gonna happen.
and again, he's been very reasonable, so I can't imagine it's gonna be very much, quite frankly.
I would still stick with the motion, authorize Margaret, working with Stephen to go the first option. And if we find out there's a kicker, or they want to do something different, raising the rate, we go back and go to the option of we self-fund it.
Or borrow, basically.
Borrow, yeah,
Internally.
internally, yes. That's my motion.
That's his motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Discussion? No? I will call the question then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, Madam Chairman, just real briefly, I should have, since the discussion about that modification was not on the agenda, are there any
Oh,
members of the audience who
yes.
wish to make any comments on that? I should have mentioned that too.
I see none.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The last thing, just to mention, just an informational only, Catherine Hunter, one of the attorneys in our office, is at the FASD conference. She's making a presentation on HIPAA and FIPA. That's the Florida version of HIPAA on protected health insurance. So she's doing that. You'll see her in Orlando then. Thank you.
Good job last year.
Yes.
So, Mr.
Nothing?
Medina?
David, if you want to go back to what you were doing before you chimed in with us?
He's already snoozed off.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Unless you have something else to add.
No, I can't think of anything at the moment.
Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
All right, moving right along.
We still,
Staff report.
we still on Tony?
Oh,
uh-oh.
yeah, good questions, sorry.
Yeah, only one. FPL Eastman, where are we?
I've heard nothing more from WCI. I'll keep hounding them about getting together.
and the surveyor, you've tied the surveyor in with this, correct?
I've, 3 quotes out, and I'll go over that during.
But this is,
the report.
but that, the work includes this.
Yes.
Because if you recall, WCI said they would help us get assurances from Lee County that all development orders were all closed out or in compliance. I've not heard anything about getting together to talk about those.
There is one other thing legal that, for Tony. We've just received notification that the school is applying to South Florida Water Management,
Army Corps.
Army Corps,
It was
sorry.
Army Corps, yeah.
Army Corps, for what, if you can read all that gobbledygook, what it looks like to me is they're proposing to fill in all the wetlands and/or convert the wetlands in their 55-acre site to holding ponds, one or the other. We have a shared wetland with them at Magnolia Lakes on the north side, a sliver. In fact, it's like an eighth moon piece that will be a residue when this is done. And I think that we need to have somebody, staff, contact, if it's the Corps, it's the Corps, and find out if they're gonna take and fill in and/or convert that, then why are we being left with a remnant to have to mess with that's caused us all kinds of problems in Magnolia Lakes to begin with? If they're going into, can we piggyback to get rid of our little slice that's in the backyards of about 8 homes in Magnolia Lakes?
What I would suggest is that Chris and or the engineers, yeah, contact Army Corps in South Florida, because there's probably a parallel permit with South Florida about the fill activity too. And if there's conservation easement, if there is one over the Magnolia Lakes area, you may modify that or remove that.
Yeah, we have the.
Now, they may need, the school board may be using mitigation bank credits or buying mitigation elsewhere to pay for that fill activity also.
We just need to figure out if the last thing I want to see us left with is a remnant up there, because if you know the background of Magnolia Lakes, the reason that pond is the way it is it was designed at a 25 elevation to protect that wetland. If that wetland goes by the wayside and the only thing we have left there is that little sliver, we can get rid of that, we can drop that pond level down and move water in that pond. Right now, we can't do anything. That pond is just a pain in the neck. But if we can get Johnson and or the school people to work with us to send some of their water that way, they could really help us on water coming through Magnolia Lake and turning that pond over. I don't know if any of you have been out there, but it has already got a scummy green that Margaret's sweater looks like all the way around.
Just call
Whoa,
it
yeah.
I said,
Mr. Tinkle,
looks
excuse
like-
me.
Looks like,
How are you still married?
Madam Chairman,
as you know, I was.
is the board gonna vote to send Mr. Tinkle etiquette school?
But just call me Donald. The issue is, we need to check on that to make sure that we can get rid of that piece of a wetland that we have up there also.
We already have a request into the management district for the
Great.
census issue, so.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Banks, Mr. Banks.
My bad.
Keep coming.
Oh. Better go to baby bird down there.
We'll work for chocolate.
All right, that moves us to district meetings.
For tonight too, when Mr. Tinkle mentioned the survey, we put out a request for quotes for 3 different projects. 3 different quotes, one's for survey work at the lift stations at Stony Brook to get an enhanced easement for some work we're gonna do up there on the lift stations. The second one is the Alta survey for the Florida Power easement, and we sent those out to 8 different firms, and the responses are due back the 28th of this month with the notice to proceed on April 5th and 45 days to finish the work. And the third RFQ that went out is for 14 stormwater structures to shoot the elevations, establish benchmarks, and put those benchmark elevations on a disc on the structure itself.
Right.
So that's part of the quote will be coming back. And the next thing, most of it with the SRF has been discussed already in their March 6th meeting. We did get the planning dollars approved for $116,000 for that next set facility plan and the planning documents required. So that was approved. And addressed the resolution that we needed, and we addressed the trust agreement, so we're moving forward.
questions for Mr. Shoemaker?
Are you gonna do the utility connection, or are you gonna wait till it comes down further?
Wait till it comes up on the.
Okay. I think the other questions I've got, probably Kenny's. Kenny gonna be here? Kenny gonna talk? Okay, I'll just wait till Kenny gets here.
Business manager.
All right, I just have two things. One quick one was, Mike and I went to the Henderson Franklin Law Conference last week. It was actually very interesting, learned a little bit. They had a lot about workman's comp and things like that, which, a couple things that actually we're dealing with, so it was very informative. The other one is our contract with Infomark. We had a phone call with them just about 2 or 3 weeks ago going over any changes and the renewal. They sent over a new amendment. A couple things weren't updated on their side, like dates and stuff like that, but essentially the only difference is it'll stay the same. They want to raise it about $8,000, and that's due to the preparing the minutes, the agendas for the meetings for the Board of Supervisors as well as the committees, and a lot because of the changes that are being made to the minutes after the fact. They said that they had about 200 hours of time that they had not planned, which was the increase. So that item's actually farther down. I don't know if you guys want to bump it up to here, wait for later to actually vote on it. We're
Bring it forward?
I don't care, do it now.
Sure. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and bring it forward.
Okay, and with that, we're kind of working on here, we're looking at the AP and AR and stuff now, obviously with potentially another employee. We're slowly starting to take a couple things over. We did, for the minutes, I actually just picked a person. We looked online for like freelance transcription. There's a whole bunch of websites, things that do it. We're gonna see kind of what it would cost for us and how well it's done. And also they have a very quick turnaround. We've had a couple of our committees have not received their minutes in the 30 days, so it would help with that. That's just kind of where we are
Is
now.
the form of agreement that's in the board book, is it the current one? Does it reflect the latest changes you just talked about?
No, it is not.
Okay.
I made
It
a.
almost mirrors word for word the prior one.
It's
just
the
changed
exact
date.
one. Yeah, nothing was changed except the amount.
And then you had mentioned something about one of the reasons was additional hours had to do with the minutes, changing minutes.
Yeah, some of.
What are we changing on minutes? We haven't for.
That's more with,
Transcription,
yep,
notes?
and that's just more with our committees. It's not the supervisors.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, man.
No, no.
We haven't, I don't think, changed anything except maybe a
It-
name
it-
misspelling
yours
or
guys,
something
yeah, it
like
was like a
that.
Mr. or Mrs. things like that.
Is
Very
staff
minor.
ready to make a recommendation to the board to accept that agreement?
Yes, I believe so.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
For discussion.
Yeah, okay. I have a second for discussion, and that means your hand's up for discussion.
That's correct. Okay, this is a one-year extension,
Correct.
okay? Is there a reason we didn't go out to bid for a new one, or is this just part of the contract?
Well-
I'm sorry, and are we going to go out to bid at the end of this year before this one ends? I'm curious.
Well, we're trying, one of the reasons that we didn't really even discuss putting out to bid is, we're slowly trying to bring some of the stuff in-house. I think that's kind of been planned for a while. And with them having our stuff and they've been managers, there would be a big hurdle for us to switch right now and then still trying to take this stuff in. So, we felt it was kind of right to just continue on and slowly chip away. And we are able to terminate the contract early within 30 days. So we wanted to have a year to take all the stuff on instead of everything being dumped on us all at once and not having personnel or resources to really take it off.
Thank you for the explanation.
That's it. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Utility manager.
Spring there.
I got utility manager on the agenda.
I don't really have any, I didn't have a submitted report. Our utility maintenance, we're wrapping up Daniels Preserve. And it's been a very, we found the problem was much bigger than what we had anticipated, and I'm actually going back to the HOA. I've got some information to pass on to them, with the 6-inch sewer cleanouts, that we're gonna try to get them to, maintain them, make sure that they do not get back into the condition that we found them in. We initially thought it would be anywhere between 25 to 35 cleanouts. We're upwards of 70. I think we're at 73 right now.
Where's this at?
Daniels Preserve.
What have they done to the cleanouts?
They've been buried, unmaintained, 2 feet of sand, no caps, cracks, sleeves broken. There's just,
This
you
is the
name
clean
it.
out at the house or the clean out at where it comes
Oh,
into
our
our line?
clean out, our
Our
side,
clean
our
out.
6
So
6
it's
inches.
Our clean out that's damaged.
Yes,
What's it on, a 6x6 Y?
yes. And the cleanouts where the two come together, and then it goes into
What
the
do you have,
sanitary
two
sewer.
lines come into one common?
Some of them, majority of them are doubles, and there are singles where we have the storm drains. And they were in just such a bad condition.
When you have a Y and you have two coming into our main that goes into our main, the 6-inch goes into our main, is the
Into
clean out on
sanitary
both
sewer.
of them?
Yes.
Or on
No, the
one of
clean out,
them?
it's our clean out.
So it's on our
two.
side after,
It's where the two come together.
Come together.
It's where the laterals from the residents come into our sanitary sewer.
who's doing this? The original landscapers or what?
It was never maintained. We found some of them that some people were very vigilant with them and kept it maintained, and then we found some that were.
If I were in that HOA, I don't think we have a leg to stand on going against the HOA. This is a homeowner issue. They're the ones that's responsible. Those HOAs don't have anything to do with utilities. I bet you their covenants don't even mention the word.
Well, I just want to make sure that they are maintained now, that they have their landscapers and their whoever's mowing their grass, that we keep that.
Do they have a common landscaper that mows all the yards? Because I thought
For
those were
Daniels
private
Preserve,
yards.
I don't know. I think, is it Paul Brook?
Those are individual yards.
I really don't know on that one. I know they have I believe in irrigation, but.
I think we're
Those-
on much safer ground. Let the attorney come in, but I think that we need a registered letter to each and every property owner or dual property owners, letting them know that's their responsibility to maintain that. And if they're damaging it, our recourse is back to them. I think the HOA will tell us to go pound sand.
But just for clarification, the clean out area is before the district pipe, collection?
That is where our.
That's where our clean
That's
out
where
is.
our responsibility
It's-
starts, into
it's
our
the-
sanitary.
It's the
sewer.
clean out
Okay.
on the service line into our main.
Okay.
And so it's ours,
Yeah.
and I think that's a property owner responsibility.
Yes, it started with a sand in the sanitary sewer. At the 90s, we found them.
Oh,
We
you
found
get-
we found
you
that we
get a
started
mess
finding
there.
sand and sand and sand, and then we had the Daniels Preserve lift station vectored out, and we found sand everywhere.
That's
It just-
ridiculous.
And we started tracing it back, and as we went forward, it's just turned into this gigantic.
I'd get a picture of a typical design
Mhm.
and a picture of the fault and send it to each of the property owners. Tell them, you gotta fix this, guys. That's not an expense that we should be paying as a district, not at all. That's an individual property owner issue.
But I guess, again, the question is if the clean out is in the district easement.
It's on their
Okay.
property.
Well, but if it's in the district easement and that's where the
ours.
connection occurs, that's typically the governmental entities.
And we're
Is it damaged?
we're finding them with no caps. We're finding them with cracks. And like when we were out in the other day, we found two cracked lids right just walking by. You see two of them. The problem is that it has gotten into their sanitary sewer and then gotten into the lift station, and then that gets into the pumps, and then it just snowballs.
It snowballs, that's right.
And as we dig them up, we'll find the laterals coming in on the customer or the resident side is cracked. You know, what do you do? I can't bury that again and say there's a big hole there and bury it back. We have to fix it.
Well-
It has to be repaired.
That part is their obligation. That's,
Yes. Well,
That's
that
the
doesn't
other-
happen too awful much, but it does happen. I mean, what you know, in that situation.
is there thought about relocating the cleanouts? Because I think like mine, rather than Collier County, my cleanout is,
You want
On my
that
property line.
you want that clean out as close to the point of where it goes into the individuals. So if you've got a 6-inch line coming out of the main, it
Mhm.
comes up and then it splits, you want that clean out right at that location.
They 45
at
in,
that
they 45
location.
into each
Before-
lateral line, in 45 into the 6 inch, and then it goes out to the
Bingo.
sanitary sewer.
Yeah.
It's a very good indicator. If you open that cap up and it's full,
You
the
got a
clog
problem.
is on our side. It's our responsibility because our sanitary sewer is
If
clogged
you
up.
hear it hissing,
If you open it up and it's a dual and one's clogged and one isn't, you know it's on their
It's on their
side.
side.
It's on their side.
that's exactly right.
But the problem has just turned into something we were not expecting.
It sounds to me like those
And
people need
it's-
an education in sanitary sewer 101.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
their
it's
landscapers are hitting
district-wide,
these
it's
things up bad.
district-wide,
Yeah.
it's district-wide, it's not just Daniels Preserve. We
expensive.
went into
Mhm.
Magnolia Lakes, we found a whole bunch more that had to be, and we have to repair them. I mean, we cannot leave this sitting there. We get away with it when it's not raining, but your first half inch of rain, that's going into your sanitary
You
sewer.
repair them and send them a bill, I bet they'll learn.
Well, I think, Kenny, that
Put in the rates.
first and foremost, if there's an issue like that, that is probably almost all of our HOAs probably have
Yes.
the same thing. So if I would draft a letter with some visuals as an awareness item to all the HOAs, have them cascade that down to their homeowners.
That's what we do.
At that point, and then we just need to, have an ongoing maintenance routine. I'm
Yes.
not really sure exactly what the action you're.
Is this the kind of thing that we can draft a letter that can go out with the bills? When we send
We
bills out
could,
every
yes.
month?
But
With a
it's-
graphic, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, and with a graphic.
I've been going to each HOA I try to go in to about a month before our crew goes in there and starts going over the utilities, and I always let them know that we come to the clean outs and it's buried, or it's broken, or something's wrong, and my guys have to go in there and dig it all out, or we have to, in our case, we have to bring a contractor in to do this. So I let them know that we're coming. We're going to be in your yard. You might pull in your driveway, and there's 3 guys sitting there with a big hole in your yard. This is what we're doing because Irma taught us that
Okay,
for
website.
the inundation of our sanitary sewer, this is where the majority of it came from,
But I
right
think most
here.
homeowners don't have any idea.
No,
What a
no
white
idea.
cap on their property is, or
Nope.
a manhole is covering this or that. They have no idea.
And I've been trying to get out in front of it with,
So that's just
especially
awareness.
with
That's education
Daniels.
and awareness.
I
A lot
brought
of them
them,
know what it
I
is
went to
because
their
they open it.
HOA and told them, this is what we find. We're finding piles of sand in your sanitary sewer.
A lot of
That's a
them know what-
break, or something's going on, and it ends up in your lift station, and then it gets into the pumps, and next year, the 2019 budget, we're gonna have to redo Daniels Preserve, that lift station. You get into a situation where we get tons and tons of rain, the plant, the lift stations, they just get overwhelmed because we've got all these breaches in our lines. I don't think Daniels Reserve, from my observations, Stony Brook is the worst. We haven't seen anything yet until we get into Stony Brook.
That's called illegal inflow, and they can't do that. I mean, the people that are doing it right and have their cleanouts up and they're mowing around them and that type of stuff, they're picking up the tab for these people that are doing it, and some of them do it purposely. What they'll do is they'll go open that cap up, and it becomes a yard drain, and all of a sudden it's a storm sewer relief for them. I've seen that.
And that's a
happen.
straight shot right into our
Straight
sanitary
shot
sewer.
right into the sewer.
And that turns into
Oh yeah,
it-
you find it when
from
you
having
smoke
one
your
problem,
system.
you get 3 problems, 4 problems, and they're long-term problems with your sanitary sewer.
One way that is a visual for doing this, and maybe this is the one that we do it on, go down there and we'll just smoke test Daniels Preserve. Run a smoke test of Daniels Preserve, and it'll look like it's on fire on the yards.
No, not anymore. We a lot of them we've addressed them, and we have started to do the repairs.
But we should not be paying for that. That
That
should be
is,
going on to the property owners.
I think I favor a letter for awareness
Yeah.
in our bill, a separate letter that goes out with the bill.
This is your
Maybe-
first notice.
Yeah,
We paid for the first correction, we're not gonna do it twice.
Right.
because we send the bills out